everyone. This is Namranan, and I will be doing a live commentary. Well, not live anymore, but a edited commentary of the MPL draft. So I'll be reacting to my own video, ironically enough, because that's the only source of the actual draft. But in this part of the video, I was describing exactly who the managers were and the different tiers that were present. So there's 3 SS monotype tiers, 2 SM monotype tiers, ORAS, BW, and then BO3. And you can see the managers clearly there: Haven Reef, Kevin Isaiah, Chaitanya Zap, Maroon, Harp, Sabella, One True Lycan, Attribute Ridley, Descend, Parish Song, Wanka, and Lucky Piper, all managing their respective teams. And it's basically just a normal monotype tournament, highest caliber of monotype tournament. So basically, if you get accepted into this out of the nearly 300 participants of this tournament, that's a very good accomplishment on you, and it means a lot to your career that you get drafted, and you can finally prove, like, to the entire monotype community just how high level of a player you are. Only the best of the best get drafted to MPL. So that's why this tournament is a really, really big deal, because then you get the coveted MPL trophy. And as you can see right here in this part of the video, I was covering how retains worked. So retains work in a way that basically shows, well, no. Retains are basically when you hold back another player that you had previously. Since this is the 6th MPL, from MPL 5, certain teams, the same team still exists, and the teams that still exist and have their managers get accepted were the ones that got to retain certain players. So as you can see on Chaitanya's team, the Goldenrod Gengars, they're very in the hole right now, but that's because they retained himself, Peachy Clouds, and Phyton the Steam, and they added 5k to their original really high price. So they're already down like a lot of money, right? And the same can be applied to the rest of these players. Also, some managers can buy themselves. Well, some managers did buy themselves, some of them didn't, but most of them did, because most of the managers are really, really good players. So yeah, I'll be covering in this entire overview exactly who gets drafted, who they are, and I'll try to keep it as entertaining as possible. So without further ado, I don't know exactly how long exactly it's going to take before the draft actually starts, because it is 12 o'clock, but I remember it taking a little bit longer. So while we wait for the draft to actually start, we're gonna talk about a little bit, like, just how prestigious this tournament is, because it's a really, really big deal. And also, we got like 300 participants, which is a lot of participants, probably the most participants a monotype tournament has ever gotten this year. That's including the seasonals and monotype generations. So the fact that we got these many participants is like just goes to show, like, just how many people really want to, like, test or like show just how good they are. But yeah, a little bit about the managers. Chaitanya and WhatsApp are the previous MPL champions, and they're going to be they're probably going to be like the highest, the people that are going to be watched on the most, because they literally led a winning team. So it'll be very interesting to see, like, what happens. I already know who gets drafted and who doesn't get drafted, but I'll try to make it seem like I didn't know during this entire thing. So without further ado, I think they're going to be starting now. So let's see. Also, I'm not going to be talking about any of the things that these guys are talking about, because most of it is pretty cringe. So I'll just ignore it. And if anything funny happens, I'll react to it on my own. Alright, and now the manager has begun. I mean, the draft has begun. So the first people will be Miniors, and that's led by Attribute and Ridley. I also will be joining the discussion chat, but not right now. Got Cookies got drafted. Got Cookies is a very notable Gen 5 player. He did pretty well in BLT, and he also has just been really showing up a lot in Gen 5. A lot of players have been paying attention and seen just how many results he can put up. But yeah, Empo. Empo's a really solid player, really solid Tours player. And yeah, I remember Parrish got him for 20k. But yeah, Empo is not worth 20k, by the way. He's worth at least 10 to 13. Empo literally is just a regular ass Tours player who's just pretty solid. But yeah, he's not worth 20k, and Parrish really wasted a lot of money spending that much on him. Alright, Free Roamer. Free Roamer is a very, very good Gen 5 player. Also, a Tours player, not really active in the monotype community, but he's still, because of his skill in MPL 5 and 4, because of his skill that was shown in those tournaments and how good he was in Gen 5, he's going to go for really high. And the teams that really want him are going to be like, the team that really wants him is probably like Chaitanya, because he needs a Gen 5 player. Chaitanya, a lot of other teams are going to want a Gen 5 player too, but especially Chait. Well, Chait really needs a really solid Gen 5 player in order to carry his core, so that way he has... But yeah, Descend does get him for 18k, which is good for him because he had a lot of money, so getting Free Roamer was definitely a good pick for him. Also, the Blackthorn Bucks are the people with the most money, and that's because they don't have any retains for some reason. And Havens decided to only draft himself. So let's see who gets drafted next. So the Melodics probably want a Gen 6 player at this point, and they also really would like besides a Gen 6 player, I think they'd really want like a well, they already have a Gen 5 because of Free Roamer. They vote for Lax. Lax is a really, really good player. Yeah, the instant 10k isn't a throw that time because he's actually worth a lot. Very good at most tours in general. He's very good at a lot of tours. I think he actually made it to SPL too, which is Smogon Premier League, basically the highest echelon of competitive Pokemon, competitive singles Pokemon, that is. If you make it into that, you're basically a beast at everything, and you're going to have a high price in any PL that you go into. So, it goes without saying that he's going to go for a lot. And he's had experience in Monotype before, so that makes him worth even more. And he's good at Monotype, so he was also a previous manager for MPL as well. So, yeah, it's very good. He went for a 19.5, not bad. Blackthorn Bucks get him, which makes sense because they do have the most amount of money, and getting a really solid player like Lax is definitely worth overpaying for, especially at this point in the draft. Alright, Trickhouse Tricos, led by Wanka and Lucky Piper. They retained Mr. 7, Metariolu 7, and he's a pretty solid Gen 7, Gen 8 player as well. So, yeah, I would join the discussion channel, but I'll literally never come back to it. because I'm too busy watching the main channel. But yeah. Let's see. Tricos probably want right now. The Tricos need a Gen 5, Gen 6. Well, actually, they have Wanko, so they might not need Gen 6, but they need a BO3 player as well. And they rate. Yeah, Zukushiku is a very good choice at that point. Gen 5 player, very good at Gen 5. He's also a decent OMs player, but this is an MWP, so he'd probably be worth a little bit more if this was MWP, though. For those of you who don't know, MWP is a monotype Winter Premier League. Winter Premier? Yeah, that's what it's called. Winter Premier League, and basically that's when we have the monotype OMs. So like Mono Stab Mons, Mono AAA, Mono LC, stuff like that. And basically, it's just a bunch of OMs. And there's a community for that as well. Like Catalytic, CB Aaron Judge, there's a bunch of other players as well that I can't think of right now, but there's a lot of OMs players. Also Mono Threat. Mono Threat is also not in MPL this time, which is a first for MPL, because usually there is always a Mono Threat, but this time there isn't. Anyway, Zuku went for 19k. Not surprising at all. But he would get bought by the Dark Rise, which is unfortunate for Piper and his friend, because he really needed a good Gen 5 player. Especially since I don't think he's going to be drafting anyone that can really build Gen 5. So yeah. Let's see, Say. Oh, Say is really, really good. Yeah, he's gonna go for a lot without saying. Dropping to 13 ain't even like a throw. Yeah, Say is a really good Gen 6 BO3 slot, just really flexible, really good at Gen 6 as well. Not surprising that he went for 17k. Zarif would end up getting him on the Bucks. The Bucks will get a lot of good picks, actually, if I remember correctly. The Houndooms choose Conflux. Conflux is going to go for a ridiculous amount of money because being good at Sword and Shield and being able to build for Sword and Shield is apparently really, really valued by the managers. So, yeah, he's going to go for quite a bit. Yeah, people are going to be screaming overpaid because this is actually Conflux's first MPL, and to go for this much for your first MPL is actually, it's really, really impressive, and goes to show just how much skill you have as a player, and how respected you are in the community. But yeah, the Miniors would get Conflux, pretty good pick, because you need a good SS slot and a good SS support. Because if you get one really good Sword and Shield player, you can basically have them support two like newer players that you might feel are really cheap and easy to get support for. So that's why overpaying for like one of those slots is really good. Jiff, I believe, is either Gen 5 or Gen 6. I know he's not Gen 7 or Gen 8. He's basically an old gens guy, monotype boomer. He's going to go for a lot because he's very good at that generation. Whichever generation it is, I'm pretty sure it's Gen 6, but don't quote me on that. The Bucks steal Jiff from Chaitanya, which is unfortunate because Chaitanya really needs solid players right now in order to have a really solid lineup. Let's see, LaRue. LaRue is a very interesting player. He comes up with really, really unorthodox builds and can be really unpredictable for the opponent to prep for. It's really hard to prep for LaRue. So picking up LaRue is actually a really solid pick. Um, but yeah, LaRue should go for a lot more because he's really unpredictable, very solid at any generation you put him in. Also, he's a Taurus player, so he's got tournament experience. For people that want him, I think Chaitanya would probably want him a lot. But yeah, wow, he's going for a lot. I don't remember him going for this much. Uh, okay. Yeah, Chait is super overpaying because LaRue is just like super solid, obviously, for the reasons I described, and I think Chait has a lot of faith in him as a player. Yeah, but people are just trying to make sure Chait doesn't have like a broken lineup, so that's why they're overpaying, because they want to make sure that they can actually beat him. Yeah, I forgot how ridiculous this was. They really climbed up all the way from 3K all the way to like 21K with like no like jumps in the amount of money they're gonna spend. It's so sad. It's really sad. He really, really wanted that player, but he could not get him. Because if he spent too much money there, he'd have to only get like mediocre players. Let's see. Floss is going to go for a ridiculous amount, just like Conflux, because he won a seasonals for Gen 8 and did really well in monotype generations, so he's going to go for a ridiculous amount. This is also his first MPL. Yeah, as you can see, Sarif say. And yeah, he's going to go for a ridiculous amount. Because same story, he's good at Gen 8, and he can build for Gen 8 as well. Uh, because he was good in Gen 8, he's going to be able to support any of the other Gen 8 players that they decide to get for cheap. So that's why his value is like through the roof. But yeah, basically players that don't already have like a good Sword and Shield player basically want him. Um, let's see, the Houndooms, Wanka. I didn't even get to see who actually wanted him. But yeah, by the way, fun fact, I remember this from the rest of the draft, but Floss would be the most expensive player in the entire draft. So yeah. Alright, Hunch Crews. Uh, they have Star, that was their retain, so let's see. They would probably want a Gen 8 player, so they probably wanted Floss, but they did not get Floss. Alright, Bidana. Bidana has apparently come up a lot. Uh, he's worth apparently 13K, 14K, and he's very good at Gen 6 to Gen 7 as well. Very flexible pick. He can do a lot. He can build, he can play, he can give advice. He's very, very solid, and he has a lot of insight on the game. So I think it's pretty safe to say he's going to go for a lot. As for people that want him, I think it's pretty obvious that the Houndooms really want him. I mean, the Honchcrows want him, but unfortunately they did not get him, and the Miniors would get him. The Miniors have a pretty good, decent lineup, I'd say, right now. Got Cookies, Conflux, LaRue, and Bidana are all pretty solid picks. unfortunately, they don't have a lot of credits left, so they're going to have to get relatively cheap players now. But I think they mostly have a lot of their bases covered. They have their Gen 5, their Gen 6, well, they don't have a Gen 7 squad, per se, but they do have basically most of their important stuff taken care of. Eternal Spirit is a tournament player. I'm not sure if he's SPL or not, but I'm pretty sure that this guy is just good at everything, so he's going to go for a decent amount. He doesn't play Monotype, I know that for a fact, so they're going to have to educate him on what they need to do. So he's going to go for AK, but he got drafted because he's a tournament player, and the Hearts Crows would end up getting him. What they're going to end up using him for, I don't know, but yeah. Gondra. Gondra is also a really notable Taurus player. Apparently, this guy has had experience in Monotype before, but I, for the life of me, have never seen this guy play Monotype. So I'm just going to assume that he's really good, because he went for quite a bit this MPL. So yeah, he's going to go for a lot. I don't know what generation he plays, I don't know what generation he specifies in, but I'm going to assume he's very splashable, and he's very good at team support, and also has a lot of insight on the game in general. So he'll go for 17.5, and the Hodge Crows will get him. Pretty decent pick, I guess. But they mainly do not have a lot of Taurus players in there right now. And I mean, they have a lot of Taurus players, but they don't have like a lot of Monotype players. So they need to get an actual Monotype player in there, so that they can actually like have some direction, and not just be a bunch of good tournament players. Because the thing with drafting a lot of tournament players is that you need someone that can support these tournament players, because they don't play Monotype. They literally have to be educated on how to play Monotype, because then you end up getting games like, I forget which one it was, but basically the tournament player didn't know, and it was Gen 7, that, okay, while PT is getting ranked, I'll talk about this, but he's going to go for a low because he's very good. But the problem with drafting tournament players is that if you have a tournament player and you don't have proper team support, you're going to end up having a player like the one player, I don't remember who this was, but it was Gen 7, there was a muck in front of his team, it was Dark versus Fairy, I'm pretty sure. Seems like a free MU if you don't play Monotype. And then the muck started cursing on the Klefki, and he kept Klefki in, tried to T-wave it, didn't work, tried to foul play it, didn't work, and then Muck kept setting up over and over again, and then eventually 6-0'd the entire team. And if you played Monotype, you would know how to avoid having that happen to you, but the Taurus player didn't know, and that's why, and he basically just threw the entire game of what could have been a much easier matchup, because he just didn't know how to play the game, how to play Monotype, and that's why you need to have support when you're drafting Taurus players, otherwise stuff like that is going to happen. So yeah. Fellyburn went for really cheap this gen. I mean, this MPL. He should have gone for a lot more, but Fellyburn's basically a really decent Taurus player. Very good at Monotype too. He can play anything. Toto, I believe, is a Gen 6, Gen 7-ish player. He plays Monotype. I remember him in MLT. He's pretty decent. Can play the game relatively well. But I don't really know what like his approximate worth should be. I'm gonna guess around 10k based on how these guys are voting on him, but yeah. I actually haven't been paying attention to Chaitany's draft at all. I've been paying attention to everyone else. But yeah, I'll wait until the price list comes back up so I can see, like, well, not the price list, but like the actual list. Alright, so the Gengars have, and Toto went for 10.5. The Gengars right now have Toto, Viton Steam, Peachy, and Zap and Chite. Zep and Chai can basically play whatever gens they want, but Peachy, Phyton, and Toto, they basically need a really solid Gen 5. That's what their team is lacking right now. They really need a good Gen 5 player. Salbop. Salbop is basically just like LaRue. He can use whatever he wants and just win games. It's kind of crazy. He's a wild card, though. He's literally the definition and personification of a wild card. He can either build some really good heat that can beat whatever the hell kind of player you're trying to deal with, or you can build a mediocre team, or you can have a mediocre team and it just ends up not being good. But yeah, he's gonna go for cheap because he's too much of a wild card to actually be consistent. But he's got a lot of good tournament placings. He did really well in MLT. He did really well in seasonals and in Monotype Generations. I'm pretty sure. So he was gonna get drafted, no question. But his price was definitely going to be up for debate. And a Darkrai would get him. Not a bad pick for a Darkrai, because he can play Gen 7, Gen 8, not really any of the other past gens. Let's see. Gengar's turn. They need to get someone that's pretty cheap, but also really effective. Because they only have 33k left to spend, and they only have 5 players. So they really have to spend wisely. Not exactly sure what they're waiting for, but they're probably discussing like who would be the most effective pick. Alright, Flycure. Flycure is not going to go for cheap though, because he is a Monotype Generations winner, and he's very good at Gen 8, has a lot of insight on the game at Gen 8 as well, so he's not going to go for cheap. I think Chaitanya's plan was that he wanted to probably try and overpay for it. He's probably thinking that he won't go over 15k, so that way he can still get a bunch of like 3k players, or just really cheap players in general. But you're probably going to see him stop bidding after like 15k or something. Or just after that amount. That's cool too. I thought he went for a lot more. That was actually very little. But yeah. He literally stopped bidding after a certain amount because he couldn't go for more than that. And Maroon ended up getting him. So now the Houndooms are looking pretty spicy. They got Trike and Flycure and North, which are really good players. Definitely. Let's see, the Bucks. The Bucks right now have 4 players. Pretty solid players, to be honest. Laxay and Jiff are all really, really good. It's unfortunate. I think they need right now a Gen 8 player. They still need a Gen 8 player. They do not have one. Okay, they nominated Trace. Really odd pick. Because Trace doesn't really play Monotype, and they're not super active in the tournament scene anymore either. So, yeah, they're just a tournament player, very splashable, very good at dealing with tournament pressure. Has played in MPL before, and has done pretty decently. So, yeah. Trace just doesn't make a lot of sense as like a pick. At least not at this point, but because we're still spending like big bucks at this point and not really buying things for cheap. But yeah, Trace will still go for a lot because of his clout in the Monotype scene, and because people just want a really solid tournament player that doesn't crack under pressure. Because that's why people draft tournament players, is because they don't crack under pressure and they're used to like dealing with high stakes situations. But meanwhile, like a Monotype main that's only experiences like the latter might not be able to handle the pressure that well and might start misplaying all the time. So that's the rationale behind drafting tournament players, because they're solid, but the only caveat with doing that is that you have to teach them the meta. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Splash Brothers. Splash is going to go for quite a bit of money because everyone knows that he's a pretty decent player, especially in Gen 8 and Gen 7. I've beaten him up quite a few times, but it doesn't really matter because he still has more results than me, and he's definitely got a lot more connections with the managers. So I think he's gonna go for a lot. I still think this is quite overpay for him though, especially since Vicure, who's arguably on the same echelon as him, went for a lot cheaper. And this is also his first MPL, so yeah, this is literally Splash's first MPL. He doesn't really have that many results in Gen 8, but yeah. Evigaro is a pretty solid old gens player, and by the way, if I make a mistake in this video, feel free to call me out on it, because I don't know everything. I'm not like the monotype god or guru, but what I do know, I'll try and like elaborate on it and explain it. Like, for example, I don't know Evigaro that well. I think they're an old gens player, but I don't know exactly what they play. Also, they're a tournament player, and he's also the RU leader, and does well in PLs, and has always been a part of MPL for a lot of history. So, yeah. But yeah, he's gonna go for a decent amount of money. Uh, it looks like Chaitanya really wants him, but Kev is gonna try and beat him out since he does have more money and he knows Chaitanya's on a budget. Chaitanya really putting out a limb. Yeah, Kev is just not letting him get it. Yep. It's really disheartening to see this for a second time, because the first time when I watched this draft, like live, it was really hard to watch like Chaitanya just get robbed of so many players because he couldn't afford them, and then people were just purposely like upbidding just to like make him stop. Because that's the thing, Chaitanya has a really stacked lineup just based on his retains, and you can't let him get any more good players, otherwise he literally just has 5 guaranteed win slots. And that's never good. Never ever good. So you're gonna want to try and like make him cripple him as much as possible and make him like rely on like newer players or more inconsistent players. But yeah, Evigaro would go for 16.5, not surprising since he's literally always been a part of MPL and always has solid results. So yeah, not shocking. Let's see, Surskit. Surskit would be going for a lot more if Mono Threat was actually even a thing in this tournament, but unfortunately it is not. And due to it not being in this tournament, he's going to go for a lot less. That being said, though, he's still going to go for quite a bit more than most other new players because he's decent in Gen 6. He's not a winner, but he's good enough to be drafted for an MPL. And because the ORAS pool is very, very dry and not really full with a lot of ripe talent, basically anyone who shows that they're very good at that generation will get drafted. And Surskit is the pure personification of that, because he's actually not that bad at Gen 5, despite me making it sound like he's actually not that good. He's actually very, very decent at Gen 6. Oh, excuse me. But yeah, he'll go for a 10.5k. I think that's a good amount. I know a lot of people memed on it before that he went for so cheap compared to like Floss and Splash, but I feel like he's not. Surskit specifically isn't worth like more than like I'd say 13k or 15k. I think going over that would be a little overpay for him. Prosaic, on the other hand, is definitely worth more than 15k because of his proficiency at Gen 7, and I don't think he plays Gen 8, so it's just Gen 7 that he's really proficient at. And basically, anyone who wants like a solid Sun and Moon core really, really wants this player. So yeah, I don't think this is Prosaic's first MPL either. This is his second one, and I think he did well in the first MPL he was in. Obviously not as good as like certain players, but he still did pretty solidly. It looks like the Tricos got him, and the Tricos definitely needed another Gen 5 player, so that was a good buy on their part. It's the Darkrai's turns. They already seem to have a pretty fine lineup, so I think right now they need to possibly get like, yeah, I guess getting Taurus players is probably a good play here because they definitely have the monotype support with Kev and Isaiah. Well, actually, no, they need a little bit more monotype support because their only support really is Dudza, Zuku, who barely plays the current generation, and Sawbub, he's not very good at communicating in team chats. So yeah, getting more Taurus players is actually not that wise of a choice. I think he needs another monotype player to help out all the Taurus players that he has right now, and to actually remind some of the older players of what they need to do. And I think Kev may have realized that because he stopped bidding up. Either that or he just didn't want to spend that much. But yeah, the Tricos will end up getting him. Decent enough pick, good flex pick for them at least. He's not a specialty in anything, but he can put up results in whatever tier they decide to slot him in. And they definitely do have the monotype support to back him up, so very good buy. They don't have a lot of money left though, and they still need 4 players. Alright, so Darkrai's turns again. Kither's went for so little in this generation, despite being a really, really solid Gen 7 player. I feel like Kither is probably one of the more slept on Gen 7 players because he's very good and he's very solid at what he does, and he can also build. Like, he's kind of a big deal, but I don't think a lot of the older managers really know, in particular, what Kither is really capable of. So that's why he went for 5.5. That's honestly kind of criminal. He shouldn't have gone for that little, because he's not new, and he's definitely shown how good he is, but unfortunately, I don't think the managers understood just how much he was worth. At least in my opinion, I think he was worth 10k, but it's their money. It's also their draft. The Houndoos. They have enough monotype support. I think getting tournament players wouldn't be too bad, but they're going to be all too expensive for them to afford, and they still need 4 more players. So they're probably going to try and get someone that's either 10k or cheaper. Actually, no, I think going over 10k means... Oh no, yeah, 10k or cheaper. Yeah, they need someone that's 10k or cheaper, otherwise they can't get any more people. I forgot about the long awkward pauses in this draft. There's a lot of them. I guess during this pause, take a look at the Milotics. Apparently people think that the Milotics had one of the worst drafts, and honestly, looking at this right now, didn't really look like that. Oh yeah, Days for Dabs. Yep. Days for Debs got drafted. Days for Debs is a very solid Gen 7 player. I remember once he, yeah, Nathan Floss is texting me about that. I was advocating a lot for Debs to get in, and eventually he didn't get in, which is very good. Very good. Ema, literally, so Ema has fallen from grace because he barely plays anymore, and apparently all the managers think he's lost his touch. So he's gonna go for like no money, essentially. He used to be really solid at Gen 7 and Gen 6. Let's see. Crashy. Crashy is very good at Gen 7, plays a little bit of Gen 8. And, kinda average at, oh, I got completely lost. Yeah, Crashy is just very decent at most of the generations he plays. Lucky Piper is a big friend of his too. I didn't even get to see who he got drafted to. I'll see later on. But Leo Lay is apparently a friend of Decem. I think he tried out with him a lot. But yeah, decent player, I think. Don't really know who he's slotting him in for. I'm not sure if he's a Taurus player or not. Don't know everything. Voodoo should be going for quite a bit. Decent Gen 7 player, good Gen 6 player, I'm pretty sure. Should go for quite a bit. Alright, and he ends up going for AK, which is criminal, especially compared to the 20k floss, 22k, like, uh, yeah, kind of ridiculous. It's so sad how little some of these old players are going, but it is their draft and they determine what goes on. Let's see, Goldenrod Gengars again. They have not drafted anything since the last time I looked at their draft. Nalik, pretty decent Gen 7 player. Has a lot of monotype insight as well, so that's going to help out a lot. He shouldn't go for much though, because he doesn't really have a lot of results to make it worth going all in for. Alright, we're in the middle of the draft now. This is where we'll start slugging through the rest of the picks. Probably got like at least 30 more minutes until we get towards the end of the draft. The Miniors look like they have a pretty solid lineup too. They got their Gen 8 support. They got some Taurus players that Conflux can support, which I'm going to assume he's going to put them in Gen 8. They got Banana for Gen 6, and also Gen 7 if they need it. They got Ridley to help out with Gen 6 too. Matthias is also a really good player to pick up. He's pretty decent at like Gen 7 and 8. And he's also just a really good support because he's got very good insight. Only problem is that he's going to spam you with Staravia emotes in your Discord, so that's really, really annoying. But besides that, not really a lot of cons. Very solid. He's just very solid and very helpful. 12k was a bit overpay, but that's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, alright, let's see. Minior Falls. I think right now their draft is solid. I can't see what they had before, but I think they're pretty solid right now. Alright, Caetano. Caetano's a new player, and I guess he must have drafted him purely because of the tryouts. Which goes to show you guys that if you, well, I guess he's not a new player. Like I said, I don't know everything, but like I truly do not know who this guy is. Truly do not know. I thought he was a random. I thought I don't really know. Don't really know who he is, but apparently he must have convinced a lot of managers that he's very good. So he's going for a lot for his first MPL. Like 9K isn't bad at all. I mean, this is the man's first MPL, and he already went more than Voodoo, who's a seasoned MPL veteran. So all right, Quays. I guess he's also a tournament player. At least I think so. But yeah, he's going to be playing. He's going to be worth a little bit of money. Cheap tournament player. I think Chaitanya should have went more in on him because you definitely need those tournament players, especially since you have the monotype support now. But he did not end up getting him, which is unfortunate. The Bucks. The Bucks currently have a pretty solid lineup, actually. They got a good Gen 7 core, good Gen 6 player, pretty decent Gen 5 player, and solid enough people for BO3 slot. I think Lax and Say are good BO3 candidates. So at this point, they just need good Gen 8 players. And there's a lot of good cheap Gen 8 players like Duo Amphibian and a bunch of other Frenchies. Okay, Catalytic? I forgot he got drafted. Yeah, no. He's not worth this much. Because I don't know what generation he's supposed to play. But I don't remember him putting up results for anything more than like monotype OMs. But yeah, if anyone can tell me like why he's worth this much, feel free to tell me. Because I honestly do not know why he's worth this much. But I know he is a very solid player based on what he does in the OMs. And he knows the metagame well. He knows the metagame very, very well. 12K isn't a bad price at all. Alright, the Milotics are up for draft again. They definitely need some more Gen 8 players because they do not have a lot of them. Cell is not a Gen 8 player. He is a Gen 6 player. And I guess they also need one of those too, but they desperately need a good Gen 8 player. Especially a good Gen 8 builder, so that way they can actually have 3 of their slots be pretty well prepared. But it looks like Parrish is going all in for Cell, so he's probably going to end up getting ranked a lot. Parrish is still going in on getting as much of Cell as possible, which is kind of crazy. Cell went for 10K, still less than Conflux for some reason, also like only 2K more than Voodoo, which is kind of ridiculous. Reminder that there are some other new players, like Caetano, that were worth almost as much as Cell, who is a seasoned MPL veteran. So, yeah, kind of crazy. But yeah, they have their Gen 6 now, which is really good. King Chaco, pretty sure he's a newer player, but I don't know exactly everything he does. I know he is worth some money, though. I should probably start commentating on, like, which certain people, like, which certain teams need certain things. Let's see, King Chaco goes for 75. Alright, they go for Croven. Croven goes for a criminally low amount in this draft. Like, it's actually crazy. Croven is like a very proven, decent player at Monotype, and the fact that he goes for as little as he does in this draft is actually kind of crazy. I thought he'd be worth like at least over 10k, but apparently he's not worth that much. Also, yeah, Chaitanya does want him because he's a good Tours player and is also kind of cheap. So, yeah, he eventually did get him. Very good buy for him. As you can see, he's celebrating. Ziri, very, very solid player. Literally made it to seasonals, nah, not seasonals, playoffs, like the actual official Monotype playoffs for tournaments. Like, he was actually so good that he was one of the top 16 players of Monotype, period, last gen. So, I think it's pretty evident that he's one of the best players in this pool, and especially in Gen 7. So, I think you really should, Ziri should definitely be going for a lot of money here. He's one of the best Gen 7 players. But sadly, it looks like he won't be going for that much. Very unfortunate. Also, I feel like Chaitanya really needed him there, but oh well. Alright, the Dark Rise are now going up. I think we're approaching near the end of the draft. Once everyone starts getting at least 10k, we'll figure it out. Let's see, Alpha Rabbit, pretty decent Gen 7, Gen 8 player. Yeah, he's definitely one of the better players in the pool. And I guess he tried out a bunch, because I don't remember a lot of people talking about him before, but if he's worth 8k, he clearly did a lot of triadding. And proved his worth. Dark Rise. Dark Rise pretty much have their lineup set up, they just need, like, support at this point. Because they got their Gen 7 core, they got their, they got a couple of Gen 8 players, they have a lot of Monotype players that can help support their tournament players. Yeah, I think that their lineup is pretty decent, honestly. It's not bad at all. TKO, I think, is a Tours player. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but TKO should be a tournament player. Went for very cheap though, which is unfortunate. Cam is is an MPL veteran, but his worth has gone drastically lower. Oh, and he went for 3k. Such a fall from grace, especially since in Gen 7, in the last MPL, he went for a lot more than that. Very unfortunate that he's now worth the price of basically a newer player. Very sad, very, very sad. Let's see, the Honchcrow's turn. They only have 7 players, but they have really solid 7 players. They got Starmaster, Eternal Spirit, Gondra, Ema, and Ziri. They need more Monotype players though, because even though Sabella and Lycan are both very good Monotype players, I feel like they need a more, like, I don't know, modern Monotype player on there to keep them up to date with everything. And to basically keep them aware of stuff. They need a little bit more support now, because their players are good. It's just they need some more support. So let's see who they decide will help them support their team, because that's what they really need right now. And they can afford to spend the money on it, because they have the most money in this draft. Or at least right now. Jace Dugan is not exactly support, but he's a good player. For those of you who don't know, Jace is basically a good Gen 7, Gen 6 player, and he's done very well in the past, but he only went for 3.5. It looks like Lycan wasn't able to get him. They waited too long to get there, to get Jace, which is very unfortunate. Oh. Adjustments is a friend of Piper and DeSim, so not surprising that he actually won. Don't know who Alvarado is, but I guess we're now just doing looks like we're going to be starting to get into the 3K purchasing territory. And it looks like Chite really wants this guy. Like I said, don't know who he is. Alright, so Chite does end up getting him, which is nice, but now he can only get 3 more players maximum. So he has to choose some really, really solid picks, because his lineup isn't exactly looking the hottest right now. He's got really solid players in Toto, Peachy Clads, and Phyton, but he's missing. Well, he's not really missing anything in particular. Well, he is still missing a Gen 5 player, like a really good Gen 5 player, but I guess he figures that one of them is going to learn how to do it. Which is really unfortunate, because he needs a really, really good Gen 5 player in order to actually have, like, the maximum coverage, because he and Zap can only carry so much. But it is his draft, so he can do what he wants. The Bucks decide to put up Timo. Timo's a very good tournament player. He also needs support too, though. But yeah, it's basically the same tournament player thing over and over again. Let's see, he went for 6K, not surprising. Doesn't play Monotype, by the way, just want to make that clear. Alright, we're now heading into the end of the draft, which is going to take like 30 or so minutes because people take forever to choose who they want. Alright, let's see, the Gengars right now need a 3K player. Because there's no way they can afford anything more than a 3K player. They can only go up to 6K or 7K. They can only go up to 7K on another player, and then they reach the minimum amount, which, by the way, I completely skimmed over. You need at least 10 players in order to actually have a complete team in MPL, otherwise you're going to have issues. So yeah, let's see who Chaitanya deems draftable. Alright, Arifine. I didn't think Arifine would be only worth 3K, but apparently he is. Because Arafine's a well-known tournament player, seasoned MPL veteran. Let's see. Alright, As the Miniers turn, they go for Shiba, also a very notable tournament player. Same story, same story. Also doesn't play monotype. Hasn't. I think he's been in a few MPLs actually. So he he has experience, but he doesn't. It's not his main tier. So he's gonna have a little bit of a cheaper price because of that. All right, he goes for 5K. Not bad, not bad, not bad. All right, Alcyone, another French player. Attribute truly is drafting all of his French players, and now Attribute's draft is actually finished. So he has himself, Ridley, Got Cookies, Conflux, LaRue, Videna, P2, Caetano, Shiba, and Alcyone. Pretty solid draft, to be honest with you. Kev may say it's looking ugly, but it's actually pretty decent. I think the draft is pretty decent. They have most of their bases covered, and they're a pretty splashable team as well. So I think they have a decent chance at winning. Definitely not like the most threatening squad, but I feel like with attributes managing, they have a chance at winning. Let's see. Who is up? Fernan. Fernan is a monotype boomer Gen 6 player. He also plays a lot of Gen 8, so you can slot him in for that too. It's actually kind of a steal, to be honest with you. The Hodge Bros would end up getting him for 7.5. Yeah, they needed a player like him. And that's actually quite a good player to get. Because they don't really have. Well, they have Sabella for Gen 6, but. Oh, wait, they're probably going to use him for Gen 8 then. Yeah, he makes sense for Gen 8. And he's definitely a good builder for Gen 8 too, so. 7.5k for one of the better SS players is definitely very good pick. Very, very good pick. Hotchkiss made a wise decision there. Alright, Azalea. Pretty sure this guy's a memer, doesn't really play monotype that much anymore. Should be retired, honestly. But unfortunately, he isn't, so. Anyway, Blackthorn can only get one more player. Gengars can only get two more. And Milotics can still have quite a bit of money. Toxinex. Toxinex is a good Gen 7, Gen 8 player. Pretty solid, pretty solid. I've teamed with him before, and I know his confidence in the game is very in there. He's a very dedicated player. Very solid, very focused. It's just that he doesn't have a lot of results, so managers won't be exactly clamoring to get him yet. But I feel like he might be one of the upstarts this generation. With the proper management, I think he can do really, really well. Alright, Piper got Tide. He's friends with Tide, so that's probably why he got him. And Tide's honestly a pretty decent player. But a lot of other players a lot of the managers don't trust him because he gets banned from monotype a lot, and he's kind of toxic in team chat sometimes, so that's why, he's probably not getting drafted. Why the other players didn't draft him at least. Completely missed that. The Architect is was drafted last gen, I'm no joke. Yeah, Architect is a pretty decent player. He doesn't play much anymore though, so I don't know why he signed up, but yeah, he can still put in work. Kaguya, LIS, is also a pretty solid player. I appreciate Wazap trying to bet more money than he has. The Darkrai will end up getting him 2 more players. Kaguya, by the way, is a very solid player. Let's see, Darkrai's turn to draft again. Their draft is pretty much done. They just need like good support, and they're probably going to try and give like newer players a chance. Confide. I thought this player would go for more, but yeah, he's a decent player. Very decent Taurus player. Alright, Avarice is also a pretty decent Taurus player. Alright, the Gengar's can only get 1 more player, and same with the Darkrais. Houndooms are up next. They need 1 more player, so they can honestly go a little bit overpay if they want to, because they have 10k. But I don't know in particular exactly what they're going to do. I think this is Zugu. Yeah, Zugu gets drafted by Maroon. And yeah, the reason why Zugu's a pretty decent player. He's good at Gen 5, but problem why you don't want him is because he gets tilted first of all, and also can get banned for unsportsmanlike behavior. So that's why he goes for very little. Otherwise, he'd be worth a lot more because he's very solid at the game. But yeah. Alright, Corporal Levy. Decent player. Don't really know in particular exactly what guy he can be. I don't know what gen he'd play, but I guess they're going to slot him in Gen 8. Random Pizza. Apparently he has the tier contributor badge, so clearly he plays the game a lot, but I don't know, like, exactly his skill level. But yeah, clearly he's a... Clearly he must be good. Devin Poe also gets drafted. Alright, let's see. It's very hard to commentate the last parts of this because it's just waiting for people to choose who they want to get. Hungry Boar Pico, for those of you who are unfamiliar with this player, is a retired, I believe, monotype player that basically trolled everyone and was basically a clown for all intents and purposes. So yeah, no one really took this person seriously, and he's kind of a joke pick. Didn't sign up, which isn't surprising because they're not very good at the game, but that's why you saw WhatsApp try to nominate him. As for their butt choosing Lucky Piper instead of Hungry Morpeko, I do not understand what that is, but yeah. We're still waiting for Zap to make a pick. But yeah, they already have their lineup pretty much set up, so they just need like a good random to put their money on at this point. Or no, the Bucks are the ones that are supposed to be nominated. So yeah, I don't know exactly. I don't remember exactly who the Bucks get at this point. But yeah, they end up getting Brisk. Brisk was a decent Gen 7 player back in his prime. Hasn't really done much in a new gen, so I guess he's just signing up based on his Gen 7 presence, which is my guess. But yeah. Let's see. The Bucks are now done with their draft, and they have a pretty solid lineup too. They got 13 players, all of which are pretty skilled in their own right. I think their draft is honestly pretty good. Not maybe it could be a winning draft. It could be a winning draft based on preview alone, but I feel like Havens. Oh no, never mind. Actually no. Havens and Zarif aren't exactly the best managers in my opinion, but I feel like their player choice might help enough. And if they're all active in the team chat, I feel like this team can definitely put in a lot of work. I'm worried a little bit because of the managers, but I feel like the players might pull it together. Spoiler alert, by the way, Makis does not get drafted. Despite how many times you're going to see people say draft Makis, they are not going to get drafted at all. Alright, I'm going to try and fast forward the YouTube video a little bit. Actually, no, just leave it authentic. But yeah, I really don't know why some of these take so long. It's actually kind of ridiculous. Do Amphibian, like I said, very decent Gen 7 player. He's very good at the game. Grinds the game a lot. Like, I don't think you guys understand how much this man grinds monotype. It's actually kind of ridiculous. He has like at least almost 10,000 games in this generation. For reference, I literally played this generation a lot in Gen 7 and Gen 6, and even those amounts combined doesn't even match the amount of games he's had. So, just goes to prove how much he grinds this game. Let's see. Alright, so I missed a few of them because I had to go leave, but okay. Magma got drafted. Not bad, not bad. Uh, HMNIP is going to get drafted. Hold on, I'll be right back. Alright. Wait, he actually got money put on him? That's ridiculous. I don't remember that. But, yeah, that's ridiculous. Dark Rise are going to get their last player, and it's going to be Cold 1949. Cold 49 probably did tryouts a lot. That's why he got picked. Alright, Jelly Togekiss gets ranked. Alright, Tricos are going to get their last player, and it'll be Vivalos Pride. Very good UU player. Not sure about his tournament presence, but he probably will do a decent amount of work in this tournament. Looking at the Milotics draft right now, I honestly think it's pretty bad. Well, I mean, they started off really good, but then they got a lot of like inexperienced players, like Leloile and Devin, who barely plays anymore, and then Gorex. Their draft isn't looking very hot right now. They don't have they don't have enough solid players, and the managers themselves aren't super solid players either. So it's like they only have like a few slots that you actually have to worry about. They probably are the worst team in this draft, but that's just my opinion. Alright, Yedla gets in. I played with Yedla during BLT. He's a pretty solid player. Doesn't really talk that much though, so you have to make him talk. But he can use anything. He's not really restricted. Probably one of the better new players. Anyway, all of you probably were expecting me to react to this. The legendary, the infamous, the most crass thing you could ever do in a draft, especially when there's new players on the line. We're going to see Parish Song uh, nominate Dr. Randiculus, and then when he does, he's going to put a certain amount of money that'll make the chat go wild. And honestly, if you want my reaction to that, initially, my raw reaction was just shock. And also just, when I initially reacted to this, back in the original video, where I thought I was doing commentary, but it turned out I wasn't, I was just completely silent for the rest of the video, because it literally just shocked me so much. It shocked me so much that he just did that I actually just couldn't even, like, I couldn't even, like, commentate. I was just so shocked. Because it literally was just, like, such a slap in the face to me and, like, all the other new players that really wanted to get in. But, yeah, it was very unfortunate. And it kind of made me sad for the rest of the day, but, it's alright. It's a new day. We always just gotta move on and just prove ourselves to the players that we're still good and we can still put in a lot of work. Anyway, yeah, here he goes. Bye bye. Anyway, yeah, that's it for their draft. Now the Heart Home Honchkrows are going to get 2 more players. I'm going to fast forward through this. Pardon ruining the raw reaction, but let's see. Let's see. Oni, not really anything I can say about that player. And they also get Kras, who doesn't really play monotype at all. So, yeah, this is the last final draft of MPL 6. It ended pretty unspectacularly, screwing over a lot of new players, but that doesn't matter. What matters is the high level players that will be eventually it playing. So let's take a look at all these drafts, and I'll just do a little mini PR here, I guess, while I'm at it. Um, so if you want my opinion, I think the best draft uh, of this entire draft would be a tie for me between the Honchkrows and the Gengars, honestly. I feel like Chite definitely has a lot of solid players on his team, and with his managing skills, it's definitely going to be really hard to beat these guys. And the Honchkrows also have a lot of solid players, but they also have a lot of like wild cards because they have like half good players, half bad players. But that's like a lot of the other teams in here too. But I feel like Sabella and one True Lycan can really put in some work with their managerial experience. Um, Now, I'm not really gonna try and like order the rest of these, but like Blackthorn Bucks probably would be third. Milotics are going to be at the bottom, absolutely. Mini Wars probably fifth or sixth. Trico's probably one of the better ones, definitely. Probably like third or fourth. Darkrai fifth, solidly, I can say. Not a, too many wild cards, too many like non-consistent players, and a lot of people that just don't play the game that often, along with 2 managers that don't really play the game that often. So yeah, I'm not really confident in their success, but they can prove me wrong. But yeah, that is my opinion on on this draft, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want some more, uh, let me know in the actual forum that this is going to be posted in. So hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be doing manager interviews shortly, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time.